This is Take Charge, Episode 4, How to Talk to People You Disagree With. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Manya, and I'm on a lifelong journey to be the best possible person that I can be. And I've learned a few things along the way. So this series, Take Charge, is really to share some of the tips and tricks that I've used to really make sure that I'm being the best person I can be, but also reflecting out the best of myself. So I'll put a link below to the whole series. You can go back and watch episodes 1 through 3. But what I want to talk about today is something that's been on my mind a lot over the last 5 years. And that is how to talk to people that I disagree with. Now, if you're not from the United States, you're probably aware that we're a pretty divided country at this point. And a lot of people have just chosen to stop talking to people they disagree with. I think that's a mistake. I think in order to grow as a person, in order for society to move forward, for people to figure out the world they want to live in, to come together in a place of compromise, you have to be able to talk to people you disagree with, and it's essential, I would argue. I was one of those people. I lived solidly in my personal bubble, specifically politically, which extended into basically everything I believed for the vast majority of my life up until about 2017, when I began a journey of trying to understand people who had different beliefs than me and to try to not just demonize them, as I'd done for so long, but to understand them. So I come to you today not as a master of how to talk to people I disagree with. I still get emotional, I still get upset and defensive, but really to try to encourage you to try and to understand that the more you do it, the better at it you will get. And it's been on my mind the last week because I've had 2 encounters in the past week with people who had very strong opinions about the United States. And if you don't know already, I'm currently based in Japan. I'm an expat for 2 years. My husband is based here with his job, and I have found an incredible expat community of wives who are not allowed to work, which is the situation I find myself in. So we have a lot of time on our hands. We get together several times a week just to explore, eat food, go on hikes, try hot tubs and saunas, which are called onsen here, and just try new Japanese experiences, but also to be able to speak English, since most of us don't speak Japanese. Last week, I had an Australian woman express very strong negative opinions about the United States. And then yesterday, the same thing from a Swedish woman. And I found myself getting very defensive, but also trying to explain to them why I thought their opinions were misguided. And that led me to thinking about the work that I've done to really figure out how to engage. Now, I have 4 tips for you, but before I get into those, I want to make one thing very clear. I believe that you cannot go into these conversations with an expectation that you're going to change someone's mind. I think we live in a world right now where everyone is very dug in to their personal beliefs. I think it got worse during the pandemic. And my goal is not to try to convince someone to change their mind. I think that's a fool's errand. My goal is to try to temper strong emotions and see if there's a place where we can come together in agreement. And if we are like this, there on screen now, if we are like this in our belief system, this, I'm over here and the other person is over here, and I try to pull them all the way to my side, not only is it not going to work, but you might end up losing a potential friend or an actual friend in the process. I once heard someone say that you come together into the middle until you find that place where you agree with each other, and then from there try to back out and figure out where you have common ground. That's hard to do. It really takes two people wanting to have a rational conversation, which almost never happens. So if you find someone who wants to talk through an issue with rationality and compassion and really wants to hear what you have to say, you should hang on to that person for the rest of your life. That's not going to happen very often. In my experience, what I have are people who have a lot of certainty, very, very strong opinions, and I feel like they're wrong, and I'm trying to figure out how to express myself in a productive way. So here are the tricks that I use in those situations. I try to be curious about what it is that they are saying. It's very easy as soon as someone expresses even a vague opinion. So I'll give you an example. In the United States, it might look like something like, I love guns. Once someone says that, it's very easy for someone on the other political side to just throw down the wall and think, oh, well, I know exactly who this person is. I've got them all figured out simply because of that statement that they just made. I want you to try and keep that wall up and to be curious about why it is that they are saying that. You really have no idea. In the same gun example, maybe they grew up with their grandfather taking them hunting or target practice shooting or something like that, and that's a strong memory for them. And so they actually have a positive association with guns. It does not mean necessarily that they believe what you think they believe. So that's step one in these conversations, is that as soon as someone says something that makes you go, oh, and you start to think, oh, well, I know exactly who they are, you pull yourself back and you try to keep yourself curious about who they actually are and not who you think they are. Tip number 2 is to be open to changing your mind. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying you ever have to change your mind. You might come out of a conversation with someone you disagree with more solidified on your position and more dug in to what you believe. But if you are open to potentially changing your mind, if someone makes a good point that resonates with you, then you are going to act better in that conversation than if you're just dug in and you're never changing your mind. Once I decided to be open to changing my mind and to listening and being curious with people, I actually started to change my mind on things. And I don't lose any power or lose any ground if someone makes a good point that resonates with me that I hadn't thought of before. We're not in a competition here. We're all trying to create the best society that we can. And I believe that for the most part, we all agree on the end goal. We just don't necessarily agree how to get there. Tip number 3 is one that's very, very hard for people, but in my mind is one of the most important qualities that you need to try and embody, which is the ability to make their argument for them. It does not mean you have to agree with them. It does not mean that by stating their their position out loud means that automatically it's your position. But it's very, very helpful to be able to understand someone's position, and in order to do that, you need to be able to articulate it. So I'm going to give you a very controversial example in abortion. So whether let's just say you are pro-choice, so you believe in a woman's right to choose. Let's say you believe in abortions up until very close to birth. Let's say you really don't want any restrictions. It's the woman's right to choose. Can you see the points that a pro-life person is making? Can you understand where they're coming from? Can you see that they're concerned about life and that maybe they might believe that life starts at a different place and time than you do? Can you see any of that? Does that resonate with you? If not, I would encourage you to take a step back and let yourself be able to see that, because it's not an irrational position. You may disagree with it, but it's not evil or irrational. And the minute that you can make someone else's argument for them is the moment that you open up to understanding. Again, understanding does not mean you have to agree with them. I think that's where we have issues right now in our society, is that we think that if we acknowledge at all that we understand someone's position, it means that we agree with them. And it simply does not. It just makes you a compassionate human being who can see things from someone else's perspective, which used to be something that we all tried to do all the time. And I think we should get back to it. And then my final tip for how to talk to people that you disagree with is to be willing to state your position calmly and rationally. Yelling at someone, storming out after yelling at someone, slamming a door in someone's face, hanging up the phone on someone because they said something that you found offensive does not move the conversation forward, does not move you forward as an individual. It is absolutely okay to have an opinion and to state your position. Just like it's okay for them to state their position and to have an opinion. What is most important is that you remain calm. This is where people are really falling down these days. So I'll give you an example from yesterday. I was in book club here, and there was a Swedish woman, and we ended up talking about the healthcare system, because one of the best things about being an expat is you get to talk to people from around the world about what their country does well, what their country does not so well. It's an opportunity to learn. But she didn't talk to me about Sweden. She talked to me about her opinions about the United States. And she said, well, I've talked to Americans and they don't want to pay for other people's health care. That got me a little mad, because she's been to the United States one time, to Los Angeles, and I don't know how many Americans she's talked to. But I tried to remain calm, and I said to her, the United States has over 370 million people. It's very diverse and very, very large. You simply cannot say all Americans think one way or all Americans think another way. Now, did she then say to me, oh, you're so right, and I'm really sorry. I should not make stereotypes or make assumptions about Americans. I will never do it again. No, of course she did not. She doubled down, and she said it like 5 more times. And it pissed me off. But what is important to me is not her. I cannot control her. I can't control how she talks, what she thinks, how she walks, anything. I can't control her. The only person I can control is me. And I said my piece, and I moved on. I want to offer to you that in order to move our society forward, to figure out how to mend these divisions that we have right now, we have to talk to each other. And we have to talk to each other even when we disagree. So I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful. Try them the next time you're around that uncle or the coworker who likes to drop those things into conversation that make you mad. Take a step back and try to be open to what they are saying. Be willing to change your mind, be able to articulate their argument, and most of all, to explain the way you feel and what you believe in a calm and rational manner. Go out there and be the best person that you can be every single day. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.